good evening and a warm welcome to Nipman Foundation Microsoft Equal Opportunity Awards 2019.
The sixth edition of the Nipman Foundation Microsoft Equal Opportunity Awards was organized in Delhi recently.
Video games, my friends, my
Launched in
family.
2014, the awards recognize organizations that are empowering persons with disabilities in their workspace and lifestyles.
And that was my moment. Well, that's taking the tools that we trusted tools.
Every punctuation mark, every misspelling is a declaration to the world that I exist.
The marquee event has made giant strides in helping persons with disabilities. It has fast become a platform to recognize and reward private sector companies that not only promote employment of persons with disabilities but also remove all physical and attitudinal barriers, encouraging them to flourish.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all this evening for the sixth edition of the awards. Ever since Nipun was a little boy, he used to tell me, we're going to find answers of my problems not through medical science, but through technology. Seeing him as a smart young technology-savvy boy with everything at his fingertips, I know he was absolutely right. He has all his books online, he's shopping on various e-commerce websites, and all his electronics are connected to his phone or to his voice. And of course, the mobility with the joystick of his wheelchair. And in Microsoft, we find an absolutely appropriate partner to reinforce that and to get a deeper insight. We have a keynote address by Mr. Hector Mento, Senior Technology Evangelist, EMEA, Microsoft UK, followed by a fireside chat where Nipun will be in conversation with Mr. Hector and Clinton Covington, Principal Program Manager, Microsoft Redmount.
This event recognizes organizations and individuals who have made significant contributions in the field of innovation in technology and non-technology, employment, accessibility, inclusive schools and integrated schools. The awards also recognize entrepreneurs and professionals with disability. 219 applications were received this year.
The last 1 year has been an eventful year for the Nipman Foundation. We've conducted various audit trainings and sensitization programs at Labasna, Missouri, where we trained officer trainees of the Indian bureaucracy, the Delhi Police, the Economic Offences Wing, the Jammu and Kashmir government, including over 20 departments, Cummins Corporate Office in Mumbai, and we also did a workshop with top CEOs at YPO Mumbai. We have done accessibility audits at the Doon School, Dehradun, the Jammu and Kashmir High Courts in Srinagar and Jammu, the Srinagar District Court, the Jammu Airport, the Cummins Airport at Fulton, Maharashtra, Midland Credit Management in Gurgaon. And in fact, in the last 2 years, we've conducted over 50 pro bono accessibility audits for governments across the country too. We conducted disability and youth dialogues across 5 colleges in Delhi in association with the UNV this year. We have been accessibility partners to CII, the Auto Expo, the NH7 Weekender, the Jaipur Literary Festival, and the Serendipity Arts Festival. We have been battling against the GST imposition on assistive devices. We are leading the battle for inclusion of persons with congenital disabilities in insurance. Earlier this year, on August 5th, 2019, the Supreme Court gave a historic verdict for persons with disabilities and the elderly of Delhi by directing the Delhi government and its public transport agencies to acquire only low-floor buses in the future and purchase only those buses that conform to global accessibility standards. And I think this PL is really historic because what this will ensure is that any government across the country cannot really buy buses that are not accessible because it's a Supreme Court judgment. We've also been lobbying with the CBFC, which is the Central Bureau of Film Certification, for inclusion of subtitles and audio descriptions in movies. Last month, CBFC actually sent out a circular regarding the same. One of our biggest focus areas in the Equal Opportunity Awards as they've evolved is really looking at technologies, because I think technology can bridge a lot of the gaps which persons with disabilities face. After all, world over, the definition of disability itself has changed to mean any kind of barrier that exists in society that prevents full inclusion of a person with a disability. And that is why I think technology if out of all the 7 categories, it would be unfair for me to prioritize any one. But if I had to prioritize one, it would be technology.
We're looking at people who acquire disabilities later in life. If you consider
It is
the
now
post
time for a
office,
presentation by
consider
Hector
disability as a
Minto,
mismatch.
Senior Technology
All of us
Evangelist,
at the table buy our
EMEA,
clothing.
Microsoft, and Clint Covington, Principal Program Manager, Microsoft Redmond, explaining how technology is empowering persons with disabilities.
A few weeks ago, Gartner were very clear about the opportunity that sits in front of us. By 2023, technology will help triple the number of people, employed people with disabilities. We know that in tomorrow's digital society, the society that we're all actively building right now, this industrial revolution that we sit in, there's an opportunity to make sure that people with disabilities are not excluded. And if the voice of disability is not there, we're going to make mistakes. And we're going to miss opportunities to design in everybody. And that's the mission we're on at Microsoft. Okay, so what we're seeing on the screen here is my colleague Sweta in a conference call with automatic captioning at the bottom. Every meeting has automatic captioning. And the view is personal. So we're not saying to everybody in the meeting, here are the captions, because they're not for everybody, and not every person who's deaf or hard of hearing wants everybody to see that you need captions. You have to be very confident to make that decision to show everybody. And so the view was taken to design it so that it was a personal view. But the other thing you'll see here is a blurred background. Sweta is deaf. Sweta lip reads incredibly well. And therefore, when we blur the background using artificial intelligence to give a very clear view of the face, lip reading is easier. People are calling that a hero feature. People without disabilities are saying, wow, look at that innovation, without knowing that disability inspired it.
If you had to really look at the future, 10 or 20 years from now, how is life really going to be different for persons with disabilities compared to what it is today?
I mean, if you look at where we've come with disability in the last 20 years, we've come a long way. I mean, I've been really fortunate in my career to work with some amazingly talented people with disabilities, or work for some amazingly talented people with disabilities. So we've come a long way in the last 20 years, but I think the next 20 years is definitely going to be, I think it's going to be more innovative because it's going to be led by people with disabilities using a new toolkit. I think there's going to be a lot of AI, there's going to be a lot of data pulled in from lots of different places to drive impact.
I think one part that I see in the past, many times, accommodating disabilities has been more of an accommodation, something that somebody had to ask for and had to go get special tools for it. And one of the things that I think about as we look forward to the next 20 years is just making it part of the design of everything that we do, and making it part of every application. And so that's one of the things that I get excited about, is just making it to where it's not something that somebody has to seek out for how do I accommodate my disability, but that the software and the tools and the buildings and the environments that we live in just naturally accommodate them for it. And part of it is through compliance laws, but part of it is also from business recognizing the value that it has to tapping into that broader market and addressing those solutions out of the box.
Clint, I would like to ask you, you're leading the way in terms of making Microsoft Office accessible, but how did you get interested in disability?
That's a great question. I can remember probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I was working as a lead on the team that built the user experience for Office. And my manager came to me and says, Clint, I would like you to manage a new employee, new hire. And that was nothing new, but he says, but this lady is deaf. And I immediately had this thought of like, how will somebody be successful in a job that is all about communication? And to make a long story short, Katie, so I've been at Microsoft 21 years now. Katie is one of the best new hire employees I've ever had on my team and I've ever seen in the company. And the thing that was interesting for me about Katie is, you know, Katie, she could hear a little bit and she was fantastic at reading lips. She would end up taking in about 30% of what people would say. So what happened is for Katie is because she's only taking in 30%, her brain started making connections to other things. So from there, I started getting more and more involved in the accessibility work at Microsoft just because I saw the impact it had on my team.
Thank you, Hector. Thank you, Clint. I would request Madam Kamlin and a chairperson to please come up and give mementos to Hector and Clint.
Thank you so much.
We are honored today to have our guest of honor, Madam Shakuntala Gamblin, here with us. Ms. Shakuntala Gamblin is the first lady IS officer from Northeast to reach a secretary level post in a central ministry. She has worked in several positions in both state and union governments and served in multiple roles for Andaman Nicobar Islands, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and NCR. I have a long profile of hers with me today. I'm not going to read it. Instead, I'm just going to say that I think ma'am has added a real vibrancy to the sector. In the ministries too, she's going to bring in technology so that people can name and shame places that are not accessible and ensure that the entire country becomes accessible through a crowdsourced campaign of a sort.
Good evening. To begin with, compliment and congratulate Nipun, who has been very tirelessly working towards empowering the disabled persons. And whether it is in the field of accessibility, or whether it is in the field of social and human rights, or whether it is in the field of economic rights and skilling, I think he has left no sort of scope for any gaps as far as the comprehensive and full empowerment of the disabled persons are concerned. I would say that, the rights of disabled persons that had come in 2016 is one of the landmark acts as far as India is concerned. And when we did make our country report presentations to the UN Human Rights Commission and to the Committee for the UN CRPD, we found that we were able to do almost sort of in terms of obligations, 100% compliance in terms of the statutory and the legal requirements. And we have taken care of building in concerns of accessibility, inclusiveness, and be that as it may in education, be that as it may in infrastructure, be that as it may in social sort of empowerment, we have, I think, addressed all the issues. I remember when I had gone to sort of purchase a cardigan and I was wearing it myself, so my grandmother says, no, you let the other person wear it and then you'll be able to assess it better. So when a person who is disabled, he's looking at how to make technology accessible, I think he is the innovator, and he gives you the the full idea of how the technology innovations and the accessibility features need to be built in. So when we are sensitizing civil servants, well, often I'm told that why don't you blindfold the civil servants, make them one-legged, and why don't you sort of make them deaf for a moment, and why don't you sort of make them totally incapacitated so they will understand and they will perhaps implement the sort of objectives of the act sooner than later. But I think I must thank all the NGO partners. I must also thank the media. I must thank all of you who have very sort of, in a coordinated manner, we have been able to sensitize each and every one. And today I see that sensitivity as far as disabled persons' rights are concerned, we are not lagging behind. So I would like to once again congratulate the nipman Foundation and Microsoft for this very wonderful event where you would be honoring and recognizing some of the individuals, organizations, and institutions for their work towards empowering the disabled persons and ensuring that institutions, organizations, agencies, civil society, community, and policymakers get sensitized towards this entire process of accessibility and inclusiveness. Thank you very much.
Then it was time for the Nipman Foundation Microsoft Equal Opportunity Awards.
The nipman Foundation Microsoft Equal Opportunity Awards were instituted in 2014. And we opened applications for the first time in 2015 in one category, that is employment of persons with disabilities, where we received 11 applications. This year, we have gone way beyond that. In 2019, we are now in 7 categories, that cover employment of persons with disabilities, inclusion and integrated schools, physical infrastructure, innovation in technologies, innovation in non-technologies, and we also have two individual categories, entrepreneurs with disabilities and professionals with disabilities. We received 219 applications this year. Each application went through two rounds of verification, really, where there was a screening committee of young experts that judged each application. The finalists went into a grand jury, which selected the final winners, and each and every winner was then audited by Ernst & Young to check for their credentials. Jury chair this year was Dr. Shamika Ravi, who was the Director of Research Brookings India and former member of PM's Economic Advisory Council. So this year we had 7 categories, and we received 219 applications across the 7 categories. The first category was employment of persons with disabilities. First, Infosys Limited, which is the first winner, to please come up. We have Vantika Dikshit and Aruna Newton. Our second winner in this category is Hati Kappi. Mr. Mahindra, if you could please come up. We have a special mention for Logos Transformation. Ms. Annie Theodore and her team, I would request them to come up. Logos Transformation is a for-profit organization. So the second category is innovation, which I know is your favorite topic. So the first winner in innovation is the MVBRI app by Amar Seva Sangam. Next winner is Innovation Non-Technology. Our first winner in Innovation Non-Technology is Big Bazaar. Next winner in this category is Cord. I would request Mr. Narendra Paul and team from Cord to please come up. Next category is actually a new category that we started this year. It's called Enabler Physical Accessibility. We had a panel on tech accessibility here. And our first winner here is PVR Limited. Our second winner is Mobility India, based in Bangalore. Ms. Albina Shankar, Executive Director, and Ms. V. J. Kodi. We now move on to integrated schools. This time we've divided schools into two, integrated schools and inclusive schools. Inclusive schools being schools which have it in their vision to get persons with disabilities enrolled, and integrated schools are normal schools who've started such initiatives too in their own schools. So the first winner in integrated schools is Lakshipat Sanghani Academy, Kolkata. If Kamaljeet Singh could please come up. Our second winner is Tagore International School. Ms. Nikita Tomarman and her team are here to take the award. Special mention in this category goes to Shiv Nadar Noida, Ms. Aleen Aluwalia and her team. Our next category is inclusive schools. Our first school in this category is Amar Jyoti. Dr. Uma Tuli, who is really a legend in the district sector herself, and her entire team, I would request them to please come. Our next winner in this category is Sunshine Education Society, Ms. Promita Majumdar and Dr. Shweriya Swaminathan. Now moving on to the individual categories. We have two individual categories, professional with a disability and individual with a disability. And the winners of all these 4 awards will also be getting a voucher from Make My Trip to plan their own holiday. The first winner in professional with a disability is Dr. Roshan Jahan Jawad MHD. Dr. Roshan, if you could please come up. Next winner is Mr. Ashwin Karthik, who is an advisor with Death EMC. Ashwin, if you could come up on stage. Next category, our final category is entrepreneur with a disability. And our first winner in entrepreneur with a disability is Chumki Datta. In 1990, Chumki, if you could please come up on stage.
After felicitating the winners, the chief guest of the event, Amitabh Kant, Niti Aayog's chief executive, expressed his views on the initiative.
First of all, let me say that how delighted I am to be here at this Nipman Foundation Equal Opportunity Awards. I'm really delighted because I was really amazed to see the kind of unique work, really truly unique work that is being done by several institutions, and, academic institutions, charitable trusts, so many of them, and such unique work, such sterling work. Actually, it makes one feel very proud, really feel proud, and I think after this hard day's work, that I think the best thing I've done in the last several months is to come and be a part of this event. So I really feel blessed being with all of you. I also feel blessed because whichever event I go to actually, whether it's startup or innovation or education or health, wherever I go, I always find Nippon everywhere.
With thanks to the Almighty and our elders, what started as a disadvantage, and very well put by our chief guest, that actually what starts as a disadvantage becomes, adversity is the mother of all invention. It is not it's not a typical NGO work which is happening at Nipman. Nipman actually started with Nippon coming into our world, and mother and son started doing a lot of things which normally were not done. I congratulate Priyanka and Nippon on this excellent event, a great team, but as always, I think as the chairman of this group, I have to say we expect more from you. Thank you.